Hello, profit takers. It's Victoria here, and we're back today with another video. Today, we're going to talk about tips for successful trading. Now, I'm also going to cover some of the trades I took on Friday on December the 1st and talk about the trades that I posted in the locals and the ones that I took and ones that I didn't take, right? So oftentimes I'm in there, guys, early in the morning, looking at the trade setups that are coming. So let me get to the chart so we can talk about it. And so half the time I'm not, I don't have the full clear market on the picture at the time, but I'm posting on based on what I'm seeing in terms of the signals. All right. So CJ, and we're looking at CJ right now. CJ had a one low of week, which is peak formation. New peak formation low. It could be your first green day, right? So that signal showed up on Thursday, right? Right now I'm looking at H4. And I want to talk about some of the tips you want to do prior to getting down to the nitty gritty. And this takes just a few seconds, okay? Right? So let's do that real quick, and then we'll talk about the trade setups, okay? So real quick, guys, some of the things that I like to do on the higher time frame is identify the previous week's high and low, okay? So this week is the week we're in, right? And what we want to do is go back to the previous week's high, which is right here, okay? We just identify it, and then the low. Okay, right here. Sometimes I just, I don't always often go to the bottom of that. I just like to use the body. That's my thing. All right, we're gonna have some company here with Stormy. She's our mascot, always on the lookout for whoever's outside. All right, so got the high and low identified. Now, just so you'll know, we do have some updates coming to the actual trade manager indicator, which is going to give you the opportunity to select to add the weekly high and low. So we're gonna have the major levels on there. So weekly high and low, daily, monthly, okay, and then Tuesday's initial balance, because that right there is a game changer if you're not paying attention to it. And of course the open range or the current week, right? Zones. Okay, if that makes sense. So we've got that drawn out now. Okay, the previous week, the last week high and low, and then we're into the new week, right? So now I'm going to break down to my normal viewing area, which is M30. Okay, so here you can see clearly, and the days of the week are going to be added to the indicator, because the reason we're doing it that way, we want to make sure it's coded to that particular, coded to the actual trade manager, so there's no lagging or anything that conflicts. And that's one important thing in order for this thing to run smoothly. We don't want any other indicator conflicting with it. So it's just best that you set up your template and save your template once you get there. And if you want to look at any individual charts, like for example, this one is just an individual gold chart. I don't have the actual trade manager EA on here. I have just the regular indicator, right? And I only have it to the one right here. Okay. I do this primarily for you all so that, when I'm doing my before and afters or whatnot, it's just easier for me to show it to you this way, one at a time. But if you also want to do one at a time, so you have your, 6 to 8 symbols and just, instruments that you're following, and you want to attach just one at a time so that you can look at them all, right? I think that's easier too. Okay. But nonetheless, you don't want to overload the actual template that you're using with the EA, right? Because you have the EA on here, and then you have the trade manager, which is a game changer. Okay. You don't want to overload that. And the idea for the EA is to have a smooth, right? Everything is pretty smooth. Okay. All right, guys, so let's get to the nitty gritty. So Thursday, we had the signal day. It was giving us a low of week. So on Friday, I'm expecting that thing to continue on up, right? So I'm looking at this like this is going to our day two, which is the day two trend. I'm expecting this thing to produce a trend. All right. Does it always produce a trend? No, it does not. Sometimes nothing will happen, right? And sometimes something will, right? And I also want you guys to notice we have these three gigantic, actually it's like four, right? Let me move really quickly. Before I do that, let me just go ahead and draw. Okay, so what you also want to know, okay, whatever time I trade, primarily the New York time, I wake up in the gap time after London has already started. And, you know, that is not, sometimes you may get lucky and get a trade, and I'll show you one with EU that you could have gotten lucky with. I didn't take the trade, but I just want to show it to you. But nonetheless, when you see this half a bat pattern, right? That, my friend, is a reversal pattern. But does it always play out like you want it to? Not really either, right? But just I want you to be aware of it because it can. And when it does, let me bring out my pen real quick. I'm sorry, guys. Thought I was gonna be ready for y'all. Okay, where are you at? There we go. This right here. This is the half a bat pattern, and that's typically a reversal pattern. Okay, that's what that is. Does it always play out? No. And I'm going to show you some of the areas where I was like, okay, I want to just keep in mind that we have these strong pushes. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because that is also a clue that this thing is probably going to fail. But for whatever reason, it hasn't failed just yet, because what it took out that high, right? But it took it out just enough for it to reverse. And that's what I want you to notice, okay? Now, I also like to put in, I'll drop in 9. So, you know, the market starts for New York, it's 8. It's usually about 8 a.m. to 11. That's what we always say. But you can trade it after 11 and 12 and 1 or 2. It all really depends on when news is happening, okay? But the high time is 8 to 11. So for my chart, 1500 hours, it represents 8 a.m. for me. And for Friday, we had news at 8:30. So now I want to mark off 8:30, because 8:30, between that 8 and 9 time is usually when the markets are doing what? They're putting the highs and low in for the day. Okay. And then when the market opens at 9:30, which really doesn't have anything to do with the currencies, but sometimes they move right along with the currencies. It's mainly, with the indices, right? NAS, S&P 500 and DJ30, those are the main ones that really would move when the market opens. The currencies can move before. So that's why I'm not just a stickler to the 9:30 rule on the currencies, because during the time that they are having news at 8:30, and then of course between 8 and 9, they could be working the highs and lows. So you want to know, are they working the high and low, right? Because ideally, when we come into day 2, guys, we want it to break through. It was so close too, right? It was so close to breaking. It came out, it tried to break, it came back in, tried to break again, came back in. And then that third time, it got the support, the resistance. And then of course it's right at yesterday's high. And not only is that is always, right, an entry for us, right? It could be an entry to continue the trend. If it did the retest and then it continued on up, because that's usually what I would expect it to do. But this time on that third hit to the high, it failed. And at that point, we want to take this thing, take the entry at yesterday's high to go short. All right. And again, this thing it does not look like it is going to completely overall fail and start a short trend. However, I want to show you UJ. It did fail. Okay. And it was long, but now short. But let's finish up with CJ, because I want you guys to get this. Okay. So make sure you identify, the news. News is number one. You always want to trade right after the news. However, if you are in a earlier session, if you're Asia or London, you could have traded those particular sessions, prior to the news with no problem if the trade presented itself. Okay. Some of these pairs would have presented for you in those times and some of them did not. Now, for this particular pair, it did not present a nice trade for you in the London, but of course in Asia, you had a nice opportunity to take the trend long, right? It wasn't a lot, you got about 20 some odd pips here, give or take, back to the high, right? So back to New York. So we've identified 8:30, which is when we had news. Have the high of day marked out, okay? This was the area where price tried to break and it did not. So now I'm convinced that we now have, we're going to be short. So at that point, guys, I'm going to break this down. Now we're on M15. Okay, we can see the sessions a little bit better. You can even boil it down even more to M5 for your entry, because now we're looking, we have this area here identified. We have the high of day here. I'm going to move this up real quickly because on the other time frame, I could move this up right here. This is good for me. Okay. So now I'm looking for my entry. Okay. There we go. We're on M5 at this point. All right. And remember, we have news. Wait for it to continue to push through, because guess what? If this news pushed this thing through and broke through London's high, then of course we're in for the trend trade for New York. But again, like we see here, it did not. So once we see this thing get up here and fail, my next thing is, okay, we need to break a structure, right? It needs to break the structure here. So again, this is beautifully right at the blue tracer, which is what we also call the daily high and low. So I'm just going to draw that line right there. And that's going to be the area that I'm looking for. Now, remember, none of this has happened, right? We can't see past any of that. Let me see if I can bring and block this out. Okay, we can't see none of this. All we know right now is that it failed once again, okay? And the New York open time is coming, and all I'm looking for is for price to come back through here, and that's where I'm going to set an order, okay? I'm going to see if this is going to let me do a pending so we can just see. Now, again, the markets are not open. This trade manager is going to automatically get you in a 25 pip stop loss and 50 pip TP. Now you can change it within the settings, which is fine, or you can just leave it as is. Once you get your trade set up, again, we want to do, you'll have the opportunity. Now this is a closed market, obviously, but I will most likely will do a sell stop, not a limit, because I want to be in the market. All right, and then the 50 pips will be around here. Okay, and boom, that will be the trade. That's it right there. Okay. So with the trade manager, guys, let me bring this where you can actually see it. You can actually, you manage your risks 3 different ways. You can do it by lot. Okay. You can do your risk by percent. If you want to do 1%, 2%, 3%, no more than 3%, guys. And then you can do it by amount. If you want to risk only 500, you want to tick these boxes. If you have a profit target for the day, 1,000, 500, 200, whatever it is. If you want to set a daily drawdown limit, you can set that number here as well, right? So if you want it to just be 550, okay, you set that. And whatever you want your, you want it 2,000, you want it 500, whatever it is, okay? Let me put it back to that, make it nice and easy. Okay, it's going to automatically update your risk percentage here, okay, and you're gonna already know, okay? This is how great this tool is, because you don't want the whole thing about this game is conserving capital, right? It's capital preservations at all times. And I think this is a great tool for you to incorporate into your trading so that you are doing that effectively all the time, right? So that's it. We're going to move on to another trade. So that was CJ. And the tips that I was sharing with you, if you haven't written them down yet, I'm also, I will, send them over. But the tips here, guys, is the timing. Okay. New York, 8 to 11. Is there news on the calendar? If there is news, then you want to trade after the news and wait for the markets to put in the high and low of the day. Okay. Make sure you have your areas of your, the H4, last week's high and low, identified as well. And then, be ready to execute. It's just that simple. You don't want to overcomplicate it. Okay. All right. So we're going to move to another one. Let me go back to my normal. So this is the day 2 trade that did not work out as we wanted it to. But again, since it did take out the previous day high, we're still in the money for going long. All right. So we're just going to wait for this trade next on it'll be day 3 on Monday. And hopefully we'll get that trend trade. Okay. Now let's look at GU, because this is one that I was expecting. Now this has this giant thing here. So for this particular trade, let me see if I can, hopefully that's not too much for y'all. So I want to show you guys, I know the orange box is here a bit much, but hopefully you can see. Okay. So, Wednesday was day 1. This was a high of week trade, right? So I was looking at this thing as a continued short. Okay. So this here was one HOW, which was also first red day, for, one pre-formation low. So day 2, right? The trend trade came into play. It came into play beautifully. As you can see, prices broke through. We had a nice little box here, right? And then the break of structure, boom, we're in this trade. It came early, wasn't enough for me. But in New York time, we were able to get back in this trade because it did a nice retest. And I believe we also had news that day as well. Let me see, what kind of news did we have? Let's see here. Tuesday, what day was that? Wednesday. Wednesday we had 8:30 news, and we had 10:05 news. Okay. So nonetheless, it worked out, and I'm seeing 2 previous day breaks coming into Friday. So I'm already thinking we're going to have an opportunity for another continuation, based on what I saw, right? Not only do I see that we had our 2, let me clear this out real quick. So we had our breaks here from Wednesday, and then we put in a low on Thursday. Of course, this broke out that day, right? So I'm looking for this second break. We had this here. So I'm looking for this for an opportunity for continuation for the day 3 trade for continuation, but it gave us a reversal. Now, this one was a little tricky. I'm like even scratching my head, but news was happening. It's just the way it is. News, you just really never know, guys. But you just have to pay attention, because it almost looks like it's going to want to, you have your 3 hits to the high here. It's working the high, right? It's working the high. It's like, oh, okay, it's looking good. Maybe this thing is going to give us a nice entry during my time. So 8:30, this is still marked, right? We're going to keep that there. And I'm going to get down to a lower time frame. Let's go to M15. Okay. I'm going to clear this out real quick. All right. Oh, let's not skip a step. My bad, y'all. My bad. This was the high of the previous week. Okay. All right. So I'm going to come back down here. We are on Friday. So Friday, we have, let me take this off because I want to go through the steps. So, okay, we have a high of day so far within London, put in a high. Okay, we have the low, starting from Asia. Actually, that was our previous week's low right there. All right, and then we had yesterday's low, right? Which, there's some space here. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it'll come break through this area right here and then take it out. So that's why I was thinking this thing was going to break through based on what you would normally see. So then we come here and we see that price, we have this low here for London. Right. So it broke through that low. We have a pin bull, pattern right there. Okay. So I'm already thinking, okay, this is where, and let me tell you, this is where I would make the mistake, right? It's 8:30. It's right after the news, right? We're always told to trade after the news. And that's what I tell you too, right? You wait till the news. So if you would have gotten in after the news trying to continue this thing low, right? If you would have made that mistake, because I've made this mistake many a times, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get in because, it's going to break through, right? And then it gets in here and it doesn't do anything, right? Nothing. It gets support from this area because this is a major zone, as we just identified this, right? This is where you can get caught up, right? It didn't break, right? So you want to do one or two things. You want to wait to see, right? You want to wait to see if this thing's going to actually come through yesterday's low, or break through this area before you do a thing. Okay. Don't just get in. If this is too close, guys, you're looking at, I want you guys to just pay attention. If this is too close to these, major zones, you want to wait to see what price is going to do. Is it going to break through or is it going to get support? Okay. Because I've made that mistake, right? So I'm just trying to show you from my mistakes, what I do now. It's like, I'm just like, if I'm that close to those areas, I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to wait for it to get to that area and see what happens. Right. So my initial, trend for the short, was scratched just because this area got support. All right. Structure broke. Okay. And it was game over. You can see this thing. That's when I got into this trade. Now, this was probably after the 10 o'clock news. So this is 1700, 10 o'clock, right? So we had news at 10 o'clock with the Feds. I think it was 10 o'clock. Let me see. No, Feds was 11. Okay. Feds was 11. 10 o'clock was the PMI news. Okay. So after that news happened, I was like, okay, I'm getting in. Or at that point, I just started getting in to go long for this particular trade. And that was that. Simple as that. Now let's see if our manager is going to let us see. Let's see. This one would have been a straight up buy, you know what I mean? Or you could have put your SL down here because we're into this major zone. You want to buy this thing. Now you had two areas of structure, the break in and break of, right? This was inside, but this was the game changer right here. Okay. Because it also retested this order block down here. So this is the main entry, 50 pips. Okay. Not bad. It's a good trade. Okay. All right. So again, mark your major areas. In the future, we'll have them built into the trade manager. What time is it? When is news? Okay. Are they working the low? Are they working the high? If you're coming to after a news event and you're so close to the low or you're close to the high, you want to wait to see that it breaks through. You don't want to get into the trade just yet, because if you do, then, that's just not going to always work out. You're really taking a huge chance at that point. And I've taken those chances a lot. So I'm just letting you know, don't do it. Okay. All right. So let's go to UJ now. Let's get back to one. All right. UJ. This one I was thinking we had a new peak low down here for Thursday. So this was coming into day 2 of a trend trade. So I'm expecting this thing to do its thing. So let's break it down. Let's go to M15 so we can already see. And here's the thing, guys. This pattern, once again, this pattern came in where we had this half bat pin pattern. So I'm very leery of them because I've seen them play out beautifully. And then I've seen them come down here and then just break through. Okay. So if they actually do what they say, it's beautiful. Okay. But if not, let's get through it. So again, this was the new peak low. This was my green signal. Everything was looking good. It broke out, it took the previous day's high out. It closed above the open. I mean, everything's here except for this pattern was the caveat. I was like, okay. But I was like, let's just see if this thing could work out. Who knows? But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead with what I would normally do. And that is, oh, hold on. Let me do this for y'all too. Previous, we're on H4. We're on H4. We have our previous week. And then the low right here. Make sure we do these things because they're important, as you can see. All right, so now we're into Friday and we're looking for a continuation. We're looking for price to break through. But if it does not break through, guys, that's when we have to think about it and change our mind. We can't be just so hung up on this has to happen this way. Yeah, we want it to happen. Does it always work out? No. Does it work out a lot? Absolutely. Right. So now we're here. We have our news marked off. We have our high of the day in place. And of course, the previous high is there too. We're like, golly, there's some space here. Is this thing going to break through? But we can see they were working the high and they just never got through that high. Okay. So the next step, we wait for the news to finish. It draws this beautiful thing here, right? You can already see that. And that's what I like to use for my break of structure. Oops. My break of structure line right there. This is M15. Let's go down to M5. As you can see that how beautifully this did that. Okay. So my area to get in is once it breaks this area right there. So let's go ahead and put in our order. It'll be here. Stop loss up here. I know this is a bit much, 52 pips. Let's bring it down a little bit. This is fine at this particular area. 39 pips. And again, you're going to set your manager on how much you want to risk. Okay. And then your entry is here. We have a 50 pip. $49. You can do 50 pips right there. You can do it that way, just like that. Or your target could be this major zone. Okay, and that's about 78 pips. Okay, that could be your target. Just that easy. You don't want to confuse yourself and overanalyze. We want to just keep the steps very simple. If this happens, then we do that. Okay, all right, that's it. If it's always this, then that. Okay, it's never it has to do this, because then you'll go crazy, trying to trade when stuff isn't going the way you want it to. Of course, we want price to do what we want it to do all the time, but it's not. So if they do this, then we do that. And that's exactly how you take on these market makers, just like that. Okay. And one other thing I wanted to show you, we're going to do this practice one more time on UJ, because this was another setup that I noticed as well. And that's why, that's why on Wednesday, it was the 30th, this trade was a good trade to take long, because we had 3 days of breaks. Okay, we had 3 days of previous day breaking out, to the low. So on this day, I'm looking for price to hold the low and then go long. Okay, so same thing would go into play. So Wednesday, 8:30 news. Okay, so we had 8:30 news, 15:30. So right there, it was like right on the money, guys. 8:30 news. So right now, the high of the day was right here. Okay, this is M30. So now I'm going to go down to M15. Let's take a look at it. All right, we have our areas of super support drawn out. We have this space right here. So we are looking for entries. So now we're going to go into M5. As we can see on M5, where the low came in for the day. So now we just want to get in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set our orders. Okay, we want to buy. We want to buy it at, you can buy it right there. I'm not going to be able to see this, so I'm going to set this real quick. And then I'll move it to M15 so we can see. Oh, shoot. Put it back. That didn't work out, did it? Okay, here we go. I'm going to buy a stop. SL is here. This is 25 pips. We're in the money, guys. Look at that. That's 70-something pips in the money. But we're going to just do 50 because we're not going to be greedy, right? We're going to take what the market gives us. So 50 pips. Damn. I am damn, right? So that's my whole car payment right there. Okay. But dang, guys, I mean, that's it. So what did we do? We waited for this signal. We had 3 days of breaks. Day 4, after the 3 days of breaks, we waited for price to put in the low. And we love it when they give us a retest to the low, because that's even an extra confirmation that we're doing the right thing. And then we wait for the news, 8:30, and then we're in the market. And that's it. All right, let's go to EU, because EU was one that I marked here because it was a trade that played out nicely. This one actually played out really good in the gap. So this one was a great day 2 trade. This was, hold on, let's get to the bigger picture here so we can see what we got going. So it was a day 3 trade, sorry. So we had our new peak. Day 2 trend trade came out nicely. And now we're in the 3rd day looking for that break. So you can see how when the markets do what we want them to do, we're going to get this continuation. So this is what I was expecting in GU, but it just didn't happen that way, right? But it did happen for EU. It gave us the short, okay? And as we can see, price was in the box. We have our high marked out, and then we have our low marked out. And it also beautifully gave us the entry at yesterday's low, okay, for that break, giving us that second break out. And this one worked out nicely. And again, this one, news was right here, 15:30. This one worked out great with news. Not only did it break at that point, but it had retested the yesterday's low price. Down, I'm at M5, and you can see how nicely it did it. So now we are going to add our pending. All right, sorry about that. So we're going to do our buying in this area here. Move this up. This is fine for me for the stop loss. And now here's where it could be tricky. This is right at 49. So this automatically set at 50 pips. And if it did not take you out, because you know sometimes you can look, it almost looks like the market pinned and it didn't take you out of the trade because it was off by like a half of a pip or some crap like that. This is when you have to manually get yourself out if the 50 pip criteria doesn't work out. Okay, you just take yourself out when you notice price is starting to go back against you. You want to save as many profits as you can at this point if it doesn't take you out right at that 50. And I'm glad this one did that. It showed that because it's happened to me too, where you think that it should have taken you out at that point, but it was off by just a hair and it didn't take you out. So now it's up to you to get yourself out of the market. Okay. So that was EU. This was what I wanted to see in GU, but that did not happen. But we know when price does this, then we do that. Okay. All right. So that is all for today's tips that you can use to successfully trade these markets. You know, it could be keep you at ease using the trade manager and constantly keep us, you know, preserving our capital. We're going to lose money, guys. It's the name of the game. It's a zero-sum game, but we know that we can be ahead of it and have an edge in the market by not only trading the setups that show up, waiting for price to prove to you, you know, that you're right. And if we are wrong, then we know how to respond based on where they're working. Are they working the high or the low? Okay. And if we find ourselves in a ranging market, then we just get out. I mean, we'll notice it after about a couple of hours, get out of the trade and just wait, right? Wait for the next day or just go to another pair. I don't like to sit around looking at one pair thinking, oh, it's going to work out, and it just doesn't, right? So you just go to another pair. There's plenty of opportunities out there. Don't get stuck on just one or two. Just go to another one. Maybe it's the fourth or fifth one, right? And that's it. Okay. Now I did take, like I said, I took oil, I took gold, I took DJ30. They were all beautiful trades. Oil went actually to the way I wanted it to go. This particular trade with gold, I was watching it too, and I noticed that it was continuing to get support at the low here at the open price. So I got in for the long trade, even though I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, it's about to blow out this ADR. And sometimes it just does that and keeps going and going and going. But I went in and just went in because it was just too easy of a trade, right, to not take this thing right off of the open price. And the same thing with DJ30, it was doing the exact same thing. It was just laying low. And then it broke through, it did a retest, and I was in that market too with no hesitation, right? Okay, so that is all we have for now. You know, if you want to get your hands on this indicator, guys, I think it'd be quite worth it. Go ahead and get into the locals group, be a part of the community. It is available for, if you're a Profit Taker Alert Dash subscriber, the locals community is free for you. But if you do want to just join the locals just to peek around, it's only $5. All right. It's not like you're breaking the bank here. But if you want to get the dashboard, you can get right now, it's 20% off. And that information is going to be in the description of this if you haven't done so yet. So with that, guys, have a great weekend and we will see you in the next video.